The musicians appreciate the audience participating. They appreciate that the fact that they're listening, and I like to think of that too, you know, because it's important for them to know they're appreciated, yeah. It is fairly unique to be able to sit, eat a nice meal, listen to music with no stress, and I think, you know, it's a dining experience as well as a musical experience, yes. It's soulful, it's wonderful to listen to, but it's also great for dancing because there's a tradition of dancing here, you know, the second lines and all those things. Oh, lots of these musicians were around at that time. So they played in the Palm Court at the beginning, yes. My name is Nina Buck, and I opened the restaurant, Palm Court Jazz Cafe, in 1989. When we bought the building, my husband and I, George Buck, who has the record company, and we bought it actually as a home for his record company. But however, we had this ground floor, and at that point it was a derelict warehouse. So I said, well, let's just make a little coffee shop for people who were going to be coming to buy the records and things. So it gradually grew. We had a wall here, we took that down, put another wall up there, and now it actually seats 150 people. And it's a restaurant. So it's all, but we've kept the theme, and the whole idea was to have live traditional music with the musicians from New Orleans and serving food at the same time. And it's quite unique because there aren't many places in New Orleans who actually do this. Initially, I came here to work on some historic recordings that I was familiar with, and I came to help my husband, it was not my husband then, came to help George Buck with his company up in Atlanta, Georgia, which is where originally JHB Records was situated, the foundation. Subsequently, we moved down here to New Orleans, and that's where it all began, with the record company, the restaurant, and so I no longer work for the record company because I found this was too demanding. So I had to be in the restaurant, yeah. When we designed this place, I had this concept of what I wanted. And it came from when I was a young girl. My mother used to take me to London and go to these, they're called palm courts in hotels, where they had a little stringed quartet, you know, playing Strauss or something, you know. And when I first opened, I had hanging baskets and I had palms in here. And over the years, they've kind of gone. The palms got in the way, and the hanging baskets were difficult to maintain. But anyway, so I was trying, but the floors were like this. This is a traditional New Orleans floor, but in these palm courts in London, they were the same kind of floor. And then I wanted a bar, and I had this in my mind, and I had a brilliant, the contractor and his assistant, they were partners. He was an amazing carpenter, and he built that bar, and I think it's tremendous. And so all those things, I'm very proud that we managed to keep this feeling. And these boxes up here, they were designed by the contractor to absorb sound so that you can, you know, so it's not crashing off the walls, so you get a better sound. So all these little things that came together, yeah. The CEO of my company, she does all the scheduling for the musicians now. And it's a hard job because, especially at this time of year, because because it's a festival, people tend to drop out, then you have to replace them. So we've had a lot of that the last couple of weeks. I don't know if you've noticed, you know, sometimes people who are usually here on a Sunday are not here, and it's replaced by someone else, yeah. So it's ongoing. I remember when we first opened, because we have a big parade here that goes through the quarter every year. It's called Crew de Vue, and it came right past here, and it was about our first night open, and we were not ready. I mean, it was packed. It was just packed with people, and we were not ready. I mean, it was overwhelming. I mean, we did it, but it was not easy. But that was the very beginning, yeah. Yeah, remember that night. Well, his great abiding love was the American musical heritage and preserving it. And as a young boy, he became very interested in this music, listening to the radio, actually. And they lived near New York at the time, and his father would take him up to New York to hear some musicians as he got to be a teenager. And he went to college, and he became involved with radio companies, actually doing a jazz program, first of all. This is while he was still at college. And then afterwards, he became more and more interested in the radio side, and it ended up with him being a mogul of radio. He owned 20 radio stations, purchasing them one after the other. And the whole object of this was to have the money to put into the record foundation. So all his money was he made from the stations. And he had a wonderful ear because he was blind. He had this marvelous ear where he could get a signal for a radio station to see if it's going to be profitable. After we got married, I would drive him all over the East Coast of the United States, Philadelphia, Washington, to check out radio stations to see if the signal was okay and the market was okay, and he knew exactly what to do. And that's how he made all this money. The finances, what you see here, the record company and everything. Yeah, he had a wonderful brain, really extraordinary man. But his love and passion was the music. Yeah. The ones you see back here behind me, we have Chester Sardis, Percy Humphrey, Chuck Beatty, Louis Nelson. Lots of these musicians were around at that time. So they played in the Palm Court at the beginning, yes. As years went on, we lost one, and then we lost Danny Barker, of course. Yes. So it's one after the other was lost, you know. But as I say, Chuck's still alive. He's not playing now, but I talked to him a couple of days ago, and he's still practicing. And he's 98. Chuck Beatty is 98, yeah. Amazing. the musicians appreciate the audience participating. They appreciate that the fact that they're listening, and I like to think of that too, you know, because it's important for them to know they're appreciated. Yeah, I mean, they often say to me, "Oh, that was a really good band tonight." You know, they enjoy playing with each other, and they enjoy good musicianship, and so they enjoy what they do here because we do try to choose, you know, the best. And they appreciate that because they have fun. You know, they're happy together, you know, because when I say they have fun, I mean they're interrelating on the stage. The basses, the drum and the piano and, you know, the sax and the trumpet, you know, they're all together, yeah, an ensemble, yeah. Well, I think that many people are surprised at what a good time they have because some of them have never been here. They see it on TripAdvisor or they see it in the hotel, and they're very pleasantly surprised because it is fairly unique to be able to sit, eat a nice meal, listen to music with no stress, and I think, you know, it's a dining experience as well as a musical experience, yes. And lots of people will say, "I'm sorry, we only found you on our last night." They said, "We've been looking for this all the time we've been here." Lots of people say that to me. One of the things that's happened is that I used to take a band to Europe every year on a tour. So we'd go to Nice, we'd go to Belgium, Holland, various different cities. And that was always a really nice thing to do. You know, every summer go to Europe, take the band. And of course, that ended with COVID. That was, you know, we had a tour booked that year, and of course that was cancelled. And so we haven't thought about it anymore because the things are so uncertain in Europe, you know, and also the promoters of the concerts. So that's something that was a bit of a loss. It was such a nice thing to do in the summer, yeah. Well, this didn't happen here. This happened on a tour. We had Kid Thomas, who never actually played here because he died just before we opened. But we're on tour in Europe with a lot of the musicians who come here. And he kept his money in a sock under his pillow. And we're in Lugano, and it's a huge stage, it's thousands of people. And he says, "I want you to go back to my room and get the money from under the sock under my pillow." And they were earning a lot of money too, it was a lot of money. So I had to go back to the hotel, I had to get this sock of money and give it to him, you know, it was on the stage, you know, and I said, "You know, Thomas, it's safe in the hood." He says, no, you go back round, you get that money." But that was not in here. I'm sure lots of funny things have happened in here. Danny Barker was absolutely amazing, amazingly funny all the time. He really was, you know. And he had this sense of humour which was amazing, yes. But even, as I said, there's so many different scenarios that, you know, it's hard to just pinpoint one. Okay. Well, I came here, we opened the restaurant, of course, 32 years ago. And I came here actually in 1984, opened the restaurant in 1989. I do see changes, I see a lot of changes actually, because things come and go very quickly. You know, as far as the quarter, we had some Tower Records and places like that up the end of the quarter. And they've all gone now, you know, being replaced by other things. So at one point when we first came, and especially just here too, because there were a couple of really good restaurants that opened at the same time as me. And well, one is closed, the other one is not, but it's just different. So we don't have that. But this was very up and coming when we bought this building, as far as restaurants and things were concerned, you know. I mean, it's still pretty much the same, but it has changed. And we've had Katrina, of course. Yeah. So, and COVID for 2 years, yes. So it's not, we've been closed for 2 years. It has a lot of soul. I mean, it's a feeling. It has it has empathy and feeling in it, and I think that's what touches people. I mean, some people who come, it reminds them, you know, of the past. Because at this time of year we have older people coming, but I think younger people too, they can feel it. Yes, it's a feeling. Yeah, it's wonderful to listen to, but it's also great for dancing because there's a tradition of dancing here. You know, the second lines and all those things. It's a big tradition with that. We had Congo Square in the past, you know, during the slave times. And they used to congregate on a Sunday, I think it was. And it's still there. You know, people are still going out in the streets following the band. Years ago, most of these musicians, as they were growing up, would be going to church. Not all of them. Some would not go to church at all. But, you know, and in the families, that tradition of the gospel and the singing, and that has a huge influence on the traditional jazz, and still has. They're very close to each other. Yeah, we have had some gospel in here. Yeah, it's a bit small, but we had a choir. Yeah, a couple of times. Yeah. I do like so many things. You know, I like other kinds of music too. So, I mean, I do enjoy a lot of the hymns and gospel things, but that's apart from. But I enjoy things that you can dance to too, you know. Enjoy the Palm Court Strut, you know. That was written by Danny Barker and Pud Brown. That's Pud Brown up there.
To the Palm Court Strut, swing your butt. To the Palm Court Strut, swing your butt. Swing it to the left, swing it to the right, swing it to the one you love all night. Swing it all night long. Do the Palm Court Strut, swing your butt. Do the Palm Court Strut, swing your butt. Swing it to the left, swing it to the right, swing it to the one you love all night. Swing your booty all night long.
I hope it will continue. The Jazz Foundation, my husband's foundation, is to perpetuate the music for the future. And so it's always available. And so and we have a fund for that, a trust fund set up for that. So that means that whoever's handling it, it's always going to be there. You know, hopefully. I mean, one never knows what's going to happen in the future. But, I mean, since George died in 2013, Lars has done a wonderful job, you know, keeping it going. And we have the recording studio upstairs also. It's a proper, huge recording studio with all this state-of-the-art equipment. And we used to do a lot of recordings in there. I mean, it's set up if we want to do it. We have an engineer, so it's all ready to go, but it's just that we haven't. But a lot of these CDs that we produce were recorded in that studio. But there are two aspects to the foundation, because there are things that are ongoing. So I say, oh, I'd like to record the Friday Night Band, or I'd like to record Duke Hector, or I'd like to record Mark Bro. You know, I could do that if I want to. And that's the ongoing part. we've also researching, I think Lars probably explained it too, researching and preserving a lot of old labels that George had bought, like, for instance, the Ma Rainey series, which is the blues label, and all this valuable stuff which hasn't been issued. So Lars is working quite a lot of the time on issuing this. They have to work on the tapes because sometimes the tapes need digitally adjusting, and it's quite a long process. But anyway, so that's two sides of it. As I say, so many of the ones who played at the beginning are not alive anymore. So that's hard to answer, I mean, we have, and I say Chuck Beatty hasn't played for several years. So the people we have now, of course, Greg Stafford, he's played here, since we opened. Lars, of course, actually. We have, and Topsy Chapman, who's still, she's was in our touring band. She played here from the beginning. But she doesn't always come now. Her daughter's come. You've been here, haven't you, When she was here about 3 weeks ago. Shannon Powell, of course, has been with us for all that time too, from the beginning. They come and go quite at the moment. Mark Bro, not from the beginning, no, because he's younger, but he's been playing with us for several years now. Duke Hector, of course, same thing. James Singleton on the bass. And we've got some recently some new ones. So drummers, we've got two different drummers who are young, yeah. Thank you for asking for my thoughts and opinions, and thank you for supporting the Palm Court all these weeks. Enjoyed meeting you. Okay, thank you. Thank you both.